Welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo. A packed show this week, Hexamillion. First up, we've got a review of Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Unacceptable!
We smash some bricks and some heads in Raskulls.
We also check out this, the new pro guitar for Rockband 3.
But first, can you guess the game for this week? News time, Barjo.
Australian gamers spent a total of $1.7 billion on games in 2010, which is a 16% drop on the previous year. The report by research group GfK Retail and Technology included sales of all hardware and traditionally boxed games, but excluded downloadable content, games bought online, or for mobiles. For a third year in a row, family games were the top sellers, taking over a fifth of the market share, with action games coming a close second. Ashley Mitchell, a British computer hacker, has admitted to stealing virtual betting chips from Farmville creators Zynga. Mitchell accessed a server running Zynga Poker and stole 400 billion of the chips. He then resold them on the black market, raking in over $80,000. Mitchell was only able to sell a third of the chips before being caught and has pleaded guilty to 4 counts of converting criminal property. He's awaiting sentencing but faces a substantial jail term. Following the sale of Rockband developer Harmonix, MTV Games has now closed down. Parent company Viacom sold Harmonix to a private investment group in December last year, citing it as a loss-making business. However, there may have been an ulterior motive behind the sale, with former Harmonix shareholders and its founders currently suing Viacom. The suit alleges that Viacom manipulated costs to avoid paying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of potential bonus payments to the developer from as far back as 2007. Some sad news for PC gamers. Developer DICE has cancelled both the PC versions of Battlefield 1943 and Battlefield Bad Company 2's Onslaught mode. DICE's general manager, Carl Trotzen, confirmed the cancellations via the official Battlefield blog. He said it was a hard decision, but it would allow the team to focus on making the upcoming Battlefield 3. A British study commissioned by tyre company Continental has found that playing driving games potentially makes you a more dangerous driver. The study included 2,000 motorists aged from 17 to 39, half of whom were gamers. The results concluded that gamers are 44% more likely than non-gamers to speed, take unnecessary risks, run red lights, suffer from road rage, and be stopped by police. A wide spectrum of racing games were cited as bad influences, from arcade races such as Need for Speed Hot Pursuit to simulators such as Gran Turismo. The study also found non-gamers were twice as likely to dent their vehicles, and on average needed one more attempt to pass their driving test.
You'll say you recognize prices. Who should you trust? Good game!
Dr. Doom is a genius. He's also pretty damn evil. His latest scheme for world domination sees him teaming up with some of the other great villains from Marvel and forming an alliance with Albert Wesker from Capcom. Their evil doing all goes swimmingly before a far greater threat arrives, forcing the heroes and the villains to put aside their differences and get all kickety-punch on Galactus the Devourer before he eats the planet.
Turn and run now, and I will mercifully pretend this never happened.
Spoilers.
Well, not really. I mean, this is Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's hardly a game where the plot actually matters.
Yeah, you know, fighting games live and die by their mechanics, true fighting games, and it's been over 10 years since the incarnation of this franchise. So the question really is, does it still have what it takes to make it in a modern market?
The fighting engine is really quite different to the earlier games. I think it's far more akin to the great but relatively unknown Tatsunoko vs. Capcom.
There's 3 buttons for light, medium, and heavy attack, plus a dedicated button for knockups, which makes aerial combos a lot easier to initiate. You can also use the shoulder buttons to switch characters and also combine forces in your attack.
Even the mashiest of players will be able to pull off some pretty spectacular moves. But I don't know, it still feels a bit lightweight to me. We've been spoiled in the last few years with a pretty fantastic revival of the fighting game genre with the Street Fighter and BlazBlue games.
Mortal Kombat vs. DC.
Yes.
Has Batman in it.
Yes, it does. But I don't know, I think hardcore fighting game fans will be a little bit disappointed with this.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you that it feels a bit lightweight, but Marvel vs. Capcom games have always been about a huge roster of characters just kicking the crap out of each other, and I think on that it delivers.
This is bad.
I found the single player a little disappointing. There's only the 3-on-3 arcade mode, some training, and also challenges, and the vast majority of characters are unlocked from the beginning. Also, at the end, the videos just aren't worth it. They're not good enough, so you don't want to go through and do it with every single character, and you get no sense of progression.
The game seamlessly mixes the comic book art style of Marvel with the painterly style of the recent Capcom fighters. All of the fighters look fantastic and are animated brilliantly. This is especially true for some of the new characters.
The real highlight for me was Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins, who's made the transition from 2D to 3D without losing any of his original charm. His jump is long and goofy, and his run is simple and exaggerated. All of his attacks look like they're from the original game, and one of his super moves gives him the golden armor from Ghosts and Goblins, and when the timer runs out, the armor falls off, leaving him in his strawberry print boxer shorts. It's perfect.
Yeah, Arthur is great, but I'm more a fan of Deadpool, the merc with the mouth.
Halfbrick will shoot.
In comics, Deadpool's one of the few characters aware of the fact that he's actually a comic book character. He's aware that he's a game character as well, constantly commenting on game conventions and even using his own health bar as a weapon in one of his super moves.
Power in your face. Feel the love of the hyper combo. And it's a home run. This is the hyper combo.
Why is it that Capcom seems incapable of making an enjoyable final fight? Galactus is a horrible boss fight. It's just not fun. I like the idea of beating up a giant planet-eating space god, but the reality is so frustrating with his full-screen attacks interspersed with long periods of nothing.
At least you never have to face him in multiplayer. One thing I did notice throughout the game is that sometimes the camera focuses on the wrong person, and you really notice that in the first stage of that Galactus battle. Instead of focusing on the player, the camera follows the opponent, leaving the player off screen. This is pretty frustrating most of the time, but it can be really deadly in that Galactus battle because you're fighting two opponents at once.
Yeah, and it's like the game treats the camera the same in single player as it does in multiplayer, and also sometimes I just found the screen got a little bit too busy. Like I said before, this is a great looking game, but sometimes it goes a little bit over the top, making it difficult to really know what's going on screen. What's your final verdict?
There's great fan service here for Marvel and Capcom fans, and also the game is accessible, but not in a bad way. I think there's enough depth here, so I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Well, I like this game, I really do. It's fantastic looking with a great and diverse roster of characters, but I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed with it. It feels a little bit on the lightweight side to me, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
You were recording that, weren't you, player? No. What do you mean you weren't recording?
Continue. 9, 8.
Good game.
Hex, did the Ask Good Game box get any emails over the break?
Yeah, 10 or 20,000. Here's one from Sam, who lives in Newcastle, New South Wales. Hi Gigi, my brothers have an Xbox 360 and I prefer PC gaming. Are there any decent cross-platform FPS games that we can verse each other on?
Well, Sam, great question, but unfortunately there aren't many. Well, actually, there's only one crossover platform FPS, and that's Shadowrun, which was a commercial flop, so there aren't many players, but it's actually a pretty good shooter.
Yeah, other cross-platform games are Universe at War Earth Assault, which is a fairly decent strategy game, and there's also Lost Planet Extreme Edition, which we'd class as a decent third-person shooter with mechs and stuff.
Yeah, so those three are your best options. Well, actually, they're your only options. Moving along to this from Dan in Blogtown, New South Wales.
It's not a real place.
For all the Black Ops newcomers, please try and explain to them how to get past the Khe-Sanh level. I'm sick of all my friends asking me to help them. Dan, we'd be glad to show those newbies how to kick some barrel. Now, there's actually two ways you can get past this bit. The first way is the wrong way, which I did in my first playthrough. Like most people, I didn't hear what I was supposed to do, so I just got my Rambo on and ran in guns a-blazing until the game moved on to the next section.
And then there's the right way. If you actually listen to your teammates, you hear them say, yeah, it's pretty hard to hear, so all you gotta do is find the two barrels full of napalm and kick them down the hill. Enemies will keep on flooding in until you do this, but you should try and clear up as many of them as you can before going for a barrel, because when you kick them, you'll be stuck in the open for a few seconds.
If you're on Veteran, this bit is probably the hardest section of the game, and going in Rambo won't work very well. Our advice is, if you are on Veteran, take it nice and slow and steady. Godspeed, soldier. Okay, we've got time for just one more, and this one's from Buster in Melbourne, Victoria.
Hi, you guys rock. I was wondering, in World of Warcraft, what is the best class to play in PvP? Because I'm a hunter and my spec is Beast Mastery. Thanks, you guys rock. Smiley face.
Well, Buster, Hunter is a great option for PvP, but the Beast Mastery spec isn't so great. That's really more aimed towards doing instances and grinding out quests.
If you're a high enough level for dual specialization, I'd recommend going Marksman spec for PvP. It has some great moves such as Concussion Shot for slowing down your opponents, along with some other great ones.
But if you're willing to start over and want to focus mostly on PvP, after the next patch it looks like that Subtlety Rogues are going to be pretty good, and also you just can't go past being a Frost Mage or a Protection Holy Paladin. Both of these classes have incredible moves for PvP and great survivability, and they're always the hardest to kill. Pallies are the bane of my existence.
Well, that's all for this week. If something is bugging you about your game, then bug us here.
Stupid bubbles.
Good game.
Here's a downloadable game that's bound to pique the interest of anyone over the age of 30. Hex, it's time to go back.
Back where?
Back to the future.
Starring a virtual Michael J. Fox, eerily voice acted by an astounding sound-alike.
Yeah, Mom, it was just a nightmare. I was in the past, and Doc was there.
And of course, Christopher Lloyd back in the old lab coat of Doc Emmett Brown. This game aims to please anyone who loved the old movies.
Scott.
But it's also a fun, puzzle-filled adventure, regardless of your knowledge of time-warping DeLoreans and flux capacitors.
Time circuits, on. Flux capacitor, fluxy.
Hex, I love a game set in the 80s. It lets me enjoy Huey Lewis and the news without a shred of irony.
This is by Telltale Games, who made the Sam and Max, Wallace and Gromit, and Monkey Island episodic adventures, so naturally this is the first episode in a series, and like their other games, the style is old-school adventuring with a nice 3D engine.
Yeah, and I think Telltale have just nailed the vibe of Back to the Future here. You know, it's funny, it's witty, and it just feels like the films. However, Telltale still insist on using this weird virtual thumbstick for movement, and it's just terrible. Happily, you can use the WSAD key, so just go with that and you'll be fine.
So what do we do now?
I was hoping you knew.
I have to admit, it wasn't exactly as challenging as I was expecting. I mean, for instance, none of the puzzles required you to combine objects. All you really needed to do was just choose the right dialogue strand or use a single object at the right time. It was just a little bit too easy, a little bit too linear, I felt.
Yeah, I wish it had been harder too. I think maybe they're trying to ease people into this first game, and then hopefully the mind-bending puzzles will come later. You just know that time travel is going to play a big part in future episodes.
All right, I'm coming, Doc.
I also felt it was a bit too short, though.
Yeah, and I guess that comes from the puzzles being so easy. It's over in a flash, but I enjoyed that flash, Hex. I liked it while it lasted.
Look, you know, I think it does its job as a teaser for the rest of the series really well. I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I think they really nailed the tone, you know, and that was really important. I think anyone who's a fan of the movies won't be let down by that. It does need to be harder though, and there needs to be more puzzles, but I had a great time, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. I'll definitely be back for more.
You'll be back. In the future.
Yeah.
I have been playing Red Dead Redemption all year, and I'm only about 4 hours in because I love it, but I just really haven't had a lot of time. But every time I go back, I've played it for more hours than that, but as far as the story goes, as far as the actual, like, probably plotting to the gameplay, I'm not really that far because I just like riding the horse around the place. Pretty sad, but
We got some fine horses. You know, why don't you keep that stallion as your own? as a thank you from all of us.
Thank you, ma'am. He's a fine animal.
Yeah, just, you know, having a virtual horse riding life.
Well, I'd first of all like to start off this review by apologising to you, Barjo, for whatever I may have said or yelled at you or the screen during the heat of gameplay yesterday.
Some of the words that came out of your mouth, I didn't even know. I was appalled when I went and looked them up, and impressed.
I know, look, let's just say I really wasn't myself. Raskulls induces a level of rage in me that I really wasn't prepared for.
Well, to be entirely honest, I was no saint either. This game may look cute and unassuming, but it's guaranteed to bring out your dark side.
No. No. Don't you dare, don't you dare! Oh! Okay. In the lead, I've got it. Stop it! Stop it!
Oh! Yes, I can! Yes, I can! Yes, I can! Yes, I can! Yes! I can't feel my legs!
Raskulls is an XBLA download brought to us by our very own Aussie developers Halfbrick Studios, who also made Fruit Ninja. I'd class it as a puzzle platformer, I guess, but it's one of those games that kind of defies genre because it's taken ideas and inspiration from so many different games and mashed them all together. The result is a fast-paced frenzy of block-bashing fun.
The single-player storyline is suitably ridiculous. The little skull-faced creatures have their home invaded by the evil pirates. Pirates that are also rats. From space. And they have their sights set on two special stones that belong to the Raskulls, which the pirate space rats intend to use as a new power source for their ship. Thus begins your quest through 60 levels in a mad race to keep control over the stones.
The world is navigated by a very Mario-like top-down map, and once you get used to zapping your way through blocks, you'll soon learn of the various different perks you can pick up to help you along the way, because nearly every level is a race against time, against the pirates, against something. There's just no time for dilly-dallying here.
Most of the timed races involve hitting checkpoints, and often these are very punishing. If you're one of those people who get frustrated by timed races, then this game will make you come close to hurling your controller at the screen, but also you'll just keep punishing yourself because they've done a really good job of making you want to beat it.
Yeah, the fact that every race is so close, you know, you feel like giving up, but then you're like, no, this time I'll get it.
One more go.
One more go.
It'll be fine this time.
Yeah, just one more.
Yeah.
The breakneck speed can definitely be irritating for some, as it doesn't leave much time for strategy. You end up just mashing your way through as fast as possible to save on time, but the key is in those split-second decisions on whether to go across a platform or along the ground. Literally, milliseconds can be saved by the smallest route adjustments, and it's those small time savers that can win you the race.
As you make your way through each maze, you'll pick up little glowing balls of light, sometimes grouped in jars, or you can fall through entire panels of the stuff. This will fill up your frenzy meter. Frenzy is a bit like star power. You speed up and it allows you to shoot past your competitors and break through heavier blocks with a single zap. Other brick breaking or limited zap puzzles I think I found more engaging, Hex, because they were less stressful and you really had time to stop and think your way through. I think I even preferred some of them to the checkpoint-based races.
Yeah, although you'll also find little presents scattered throughout the levels, which again take inspiration from Mario Kart's item blocks. These give you a random power to use against enemies to slow them down or to speed up the block zapping process for you. But really this best comes into play in multiplayer, and let's just get to the multiplayer now because it's my favourite bit.
It's all right. Up to 4 players can battle it out against each other in a split-screen frenzy, and this is definitely where the real fun is. The design of each track varies with platforms, boosts, and water sections, so it's kept fairly fresh. There are 4 races in each cup, and you'll have to be smart about developing tactics on how to get the most items, when to use frenzy, potential sabotage, and which route to take.
The beauty of this is that if you make a crucial mistake, then the person in the lead is going to be breaking through the blocks and so moving more slowly. They also have cleared a path for you though, so you can catch up really quickly. And this means that at any stage, it's anyone's race. It's neck and neck all the time. And this is where the rage comes in. So often I'd be in the lead for the entire race, having carefully rationed my frenzy and picked the right course, and right at the end I'd just make a clumsily missed jump and all my other competitors would overtake me in the last second. The last second, Barjo!
Yeah, that felt really good. I think I really liked saving that last little bit of frenzy until right at the end and then just busting past all the other competitors, and I think that's what gained the most obscenities from you, Hex.
Yes.
Yes. You pick up these little tactics as you go, and the more you get beaten, the more you want to prove yourself, and that victory is just so sweet. But it would have been nice to have more multiplayer levels, I think.
Absolutely. We were starving for more levels. I mean, I guess it follows that Mario Kart formula of like 4 cups with 4 races in each one, but they're over so quickly that it just doesn't really feel like enough. And we even bought the additional cup race off XBLA, which was by far my favorite, but after we played through that a few times, we were still, hungry for another one. More, please.
I guess it's not a bad thing when a game leaves you wanting more. Plus, there's also some wacky cheats which we found on the internet, such as this awesome afro. Final verdict?
Well, I say keep it. I love afros.
About the game?
Oh. Well, I have hand cramps, but I loved it. It's such a great download, and it really shines in multiplayer. I wasn't so taken with the single-player campaign. It's often more punishing than it is rewarding, and I wish they'd spent less time on that and more time creating unending levels of multiplayer for me to ruin my thumbs on. So I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I quite like the campaign, but I agree with you about the multiplayer. It's delicious arcadey fun. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. Halfbrick Studios. Founded in February 2001 and located in Brisbane, Australia. Started up by 6 young college graduates, Halfbrick got its break developing licensed games for the Game Boy Advance. Halfbrick's first self-published games were the PlayStation Mini's Blast Off, Echoes, and Aero Racer. They are now the brains behind Raskulls for XBLA and the smartphone hits Monster Dash, Fruit Ninja, and Age of Zombies. Nobody at Halfbrick can remember where the studio's name came from.
When we reviewed Rock Band 3 last year, we said we'd bring you an update when we eventually got our hands on the Pro Guitar and drums.
And here it is. This is the guitar. It's got 102 buttons along the neck. That's a lot of buttons. It's also got a strum box here with 6 strings, and it creates a fairly accurate guitar substitute.
To display all of these buttons on the screen, the 6 strings are shown along the bottom, while along each string the fret number or chord you need to be on rolls down. It's pretty daunting and it takes a while to get your head around, especially when reading chords, but I mean, it works well once you've adjusted to all that.
Yeah, it's worth noting though, it's way harder to pick up than the keyboard. It's just way more complicated, so you're going to spend a lot of time in tutorials, and even if you're a good guitarist, you're going to want to spend time in each specific song tutorial and have a trial run through first.
Yes, we'll admit that we're not guitarists, and despite numerous hours in the tutorials, we still have absolutely no idea what we're doing. And our attempts to play in anything higher than easy were met with swift and brutal failure.
Ground control to me.
But we do have some real musos on the team who've tackled Expert Pro and given us their impressions, and I suppose our biggest question for them was, can this teach us to play?
And the answer is, yes it can. You know, the chords you're playing in this are the same chords in real life. They're the real deal, but it's not without its flaws.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you're using buttons instead of strings takes away a lot of the suitable feedback that guitarists actually use. For starters, you can't actually hear what you're playing, and you get no vibrations in the strings since they don't exist, which makes it much less intuitive than a real guitar to get a feel for where your fingers are. It's just a big forest of buttons, really.
So if you're going to pick this up from scratch and then expect to become an expert guitarist, you've got a lot of work ahead of you, but I guess it's possible. You'll be doing yourself a disservice though. It would be much easier to do it with a real guitar, and then you won't pick up any bad habits, and also your friends won't laugh at you.
Yeah, so I guess it's hard for us to recommend this because we don't really know who it's aimed at. I mean, noobs would be better off learning for real, and real guitarists would just get frustrated with it. Having said that, there is that Fender Squier controller coming out soon, and that's going to be a fully sized, fully stringed guitar controller for Rock Band, so we can only assume that that'll be much better, but I know I'd just rather own a real guitar.
Yeah, it is getting close to that what's the point stage, I think. We should talk about the drums, though, and since the drumming was already pretty close to what it's like in real life, the Pro drums isn't really much harder, is it?
Yeah, it just adds up to 3 cymbals, freeing up the pads to be dedicated to your toms and snare, which is great since it makes for a much more realistic kit and note layout. Plus, it's just more fun when you have some cymbals to smash. And every song has a pro mode part for drums as well.
All right, well, consider yourselves updated.
Could you guess the game for this week?
It was Back to the Future on the NES from 1989. A horrible, horrible game that had more in common with a bad top-down shooter than anything remotely involving time-traveling adventures.
Time's almost up for this week, but we shall return next Tuesday with a look at the Aussie-developed sequel to Blob 2.
Plus, he likes to inhale deeply and spit all over the place. He's also round and pink and lives in Dreamland. It's Kirby, of course, and Kirby's epic yarn for the Wii.
And Test Drive Unlimited 2, a more massively open online open racer? A more massively online open racer.
If you want more game on your TV, then don't forget Good Game Spawn Point for younger gamers over on ABC3 this weekend, where we review quite a unique DS game called Ghost Trick, and also Mario Sports Mix. Had a few interesting things to say about that.
Until next time, may all your games be glitch-free. Hex out.
Bajo out. I didn't like it.
Oh, I know.